that I was doing with groups and let's talk and mix it up and get up and write crap on the board and all this other crap. And what should have taken 20 minutes wound up taking 45. So I am calling an audible and not doing that. We're going to do it the way I want to do it, okay? I'm tired of doing things that are outside my comfort zone. Hello, everybody. All right, so the other day you picked up chapter 21 chapter 21 22 objectives and vocabulary, and then on the flip side there were some muckrakers. So if you could get that out. Now what we're going to do is, we're going to do the same basic activity, we're just going to do it in a little more organized fashion, okay? We're going to go through, and we're going to look at the documents together, okay? This is almost like a muckraker's DBQ, all right? So we're going to take a look at some muckrakers. We need to figure out what the crux of the problem is based on what we're looking at, the picture, the cartoon, the reading, whatever. We need to figure out what the crux of the problem is. And then, as engaged citizens, once you identify a problem, as citizens, you should be able to at least offer a solution. Or do you just want to let the problem fester, hide under a pile of coats and hope everything works out in the morning, which is also not a bad strategy. Before we get into that, I want to talk about very quickly what is driving progressivism. Okay? What's called progressive impulses. Now, this was in the workbook, okay? I told you should probably have read chapter 21 at least to be on top of these things. There we go. I have my notes in front of me. All right. So, what's happening in the country that's driving people to embrace a more progressive agenda? Well, first of all, you've got the muckrakers, okay, which we're about to look at. These are your journalists, your magazine writers, your photojournalists. You know, being a muckraker isn't just about writing an article. One of the most famous muckrakers was Jacob Riis, and his book was just a book of pictures. You can be a photojournalist. You can tell a story with just a picture or a piece of art. So if you are socially motivated and also an art student, you can combine those two passions into something useful for the good of mankind. But using the available press of the day to highlight and expose what problems are out there. That is what the muckrakers are doing. So once people know what a problem is, that this is indeed a problem, hey, well, maybe we should do something about it. In the late 19th century, and I don't know if this impulse ever really goes away, because we've talked about the First Great Awakening back in the 1730s. We talked about the Second Great Awakening, you know, from like Jefferson to Lincoln. And then we're talking about a religious revival in the late 19th century. So to me, it really tells me that religiosity, that desire to bring morality to America never really goes away. It just manifests itself in different guises based on the time. The morality of the early 19th century said, hey, we should do something about slavery. The morality of the late 19th century says, hey, we should do something about poverty. Or we should do something about immigrants. or we should do something about, and even alcohol. Okay? Look, there's religiosity throughout the 20th century. You get into the 1970s, and you see kind of what's called the here we go. I'm not prepared for the 1970s. I'm in the 1870s. The Christian Coalition in the 1970s. Okay, you see a religiosity there as well. So this idea at the turn of the century of the social gospel, that middle class Americans had a duty to fix things, to go out and make life better. I mean, you're seeing people like, Father Ryan or Rauschenbach, or the one I always focus on is Washington Gladden, or Dwight Lyman Moody. He was an evangelist, and rather than going out to the hinterlands like the folks in the Second Great Awakening did, out in the camp meetings and out in the rural areas, a lot of the preachers in the late 19th and early 20th century, their new area is the inner city. They're going to the urban areas. They're trying to get the urban people, to get on board with living a more moral life. Poverty is driving a lot of progressive reform. The problems associated with poverty, in particular inner city poverty. What are problems that are associated with poverty? When you think of the growing inner cities of the late 19th, early 20th century, what are problems that are associated with it? Yeah. Spread of disease, crime. That's it. Spread of disease and crime. Those are the only problems that exist in cities that are rapidly growing. Yeah. I mean, you can have a factory. It doesn't have to be in a city. But yeah, Kramer. Overcrowding. So what does that do? Okay, so what does that then mean? If you've got to build more and rapidly and quickly, it's not going to be the best. Exactly. You're going to have shoddy workmanship when it comes to building construction. Yeah.
Oh, that led to the zoning laws.
Well, that's what it leads to. Well, let's identify the problems first. Yeah.
Fire risks.
What's that?
Fire
risks.
risks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So you've got a lot of problems associated with inner city poverty, and it's people like Jane Addams who expose that problem and say, look, here, there are some things that maybe we can do to improve people's lives. There is an embracing in the late 19th century of science. The belief, and guys, you got to, I know that you folks were young, very young, at the turn of the 20th into the 21st century. How old were you in 1999 to 2000? 3. You don't remember that? I was down in Miami, man. I was up on the roof of a building, 10-story building, partying it up. And I mean, there was like fireworks going off. We were yelling at people at the other rooftops and stuff. It was awesome. Yeah. But it was a celebration. Guys, we were going from 1999 to 2000. The future. The future was now. Put yourself in the mindset of a person living in the late 19th century, and they're getting ready to get into the year 1900. Future. And what has science? Just take the years 1870 to 1900. 1870 to 1900. What has science provided these people? Yeah. Longer life expectancies. Medicine. the professionalization and study of medicine with the founding of the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine and other schools of medicine, that it becomes a science. Yeah.
Light bulb.
Light bulbs. Light bulbs. What else?
Metal detectors,
Telephones, electrical devices,
Trains, traveling.
trains, the expansion of trains. What else? Wayne moved practice back to 6:30 since I can be there. I will not go to the gym. Jay does not need to eat, but I do. I'm fine with leftovers. Now, if I don't acknowledge this, this is going to keep beeping. Yeah. I need specifics. You cannot talk, guys, in this class, you cannot talk about stuff and things. You need to give me something specific. What else is created in the late 19th century? It is the future. Yeah.
Submarines.
Submarines, yes, everybody going out and buying a submarine, yes. Machine gunnery, you know, because people need machine guns on their submarines, yes. Preserving food, refrigeration. What about the automobile? The phonograph, yes, the automobile was invented in the 1880s. Now, who invented the automobile?
Oh.
Who? No, but he built the first American car. Guy by the name of Daimler. He was a German, and he named his car after his daughter, Mercedes. The automobile was a German invention. However, Americans took that and ran with it. Henry Ford did not invent the automobile. He did not invent the assembly line. What he did was he perfected assembly line manufacturing of automobiles to make them cheaper. That's his great claim to fame. What about movies? Just all you got to do is think about Edison. I mean, Edison invented everything. So, guys, the late 19th century is a time of great change. Now, I always go back to this episode of Family Guy where Peter and his family are at this science exposition, okay? And they're seeing all these magical devices. And there's this guy there with his pants up around his chest, and he's like an old guy, and he's turning on and turning off a light bulb, and that's it. And Peter's like, what's so special about that? The old guy's like, I saw this thing at the 1904 World's Fair and nearly crapped my pants. Imagine what it was like for a person living in 1870 who did not know the electric light bulb, the telephone, the phonograph, the movie, the automobile. 1903 gets you the airplane. Who did not know those things in 1870, and now those things are a reality in the early 20th century. Is there anything science can't do? That's the attitude. So if we rely on the data and the science, maybe we can improve everybody's life. Does that make sense? And then this idea of middle-class motives. Why is it that so many progressives are middle class? Why not the poor? Surely the poor have got a stake in this. Why aren't the poor out there clamoring and trying to get things done?
It's like worry about surviving.
Boom! They're too busy worrying about where their next meal is coming from. Do they have adequate shelter? Where are their kids today? Can I keep my job? They're not concerned with fixing the problems, they're living the problems. Well, what about the rich?
They're
They don't
content.
charge.
They don't give a crap. They're the vested interest. I got mine, you get yours, Jack. Go read a Horatio Alger book. Bring yourself up by your own bootstraps. If you're poor, that's your problem. So the middle class, they're the ones with the most to gain. They're the ones with the most to lose. That's why they're involved in progressivism. Because if they can make life better for the poor, maybe it also makes their life better as well and provides some stability. Lower the crime rate. Let's get these truants in school and keep them there. Let's ban alcohol and stop spousal abuse. Well, you got a whole lot of things here that are driving middle class motives. Progressives, let me emphasize, are not united at all. They are not united. Some believe in cleaning up government, and that is their motive. We need clean and honest government to address people's needs. Some are interested in regulating and reforming monopolies and businesses. Some are concerned with creating a fair playing field for everybody, dealing with social issues. How can we address the gap between rich and poor? How can we make society a better place to live? And then some people are concerned with morality, purity, virtue, making people better. Temperance, for instance. If we ban alcohol, that will solve every other problem. But progressives are not unified. It's not like people were getting together at the Progressives Convention and swapping stories. They're all off on their own little islands. But they are unified by a set of common values. Morality, the social gospel, the duty to help. People have a duty to be involved and help their fellow man. Government has to be cleaned up. The patronage system, the spoil system, the corruption at the federal level, the state level, and the local level has to be cleaned up. Money and undue influence has to be gotten out of politics. Yeah, that's such a good job of that. Progressives, whether they are political, economic, social, or moral, are trying to protect the weaker members of society. And democracy and capitalism has to be fixed to prevent more radical things from occurring. Guys, this is a time of upheaval and violence. Look at the labor union strikes in the late 19th century. I mean, I know we didn't really cover it that well, but the late 19th century are marked by very violent strikes. The railroad strike of 1877, federal troops had to be called out. The Haymarket riot in 1886 in Chicago. You got people literally lobbing bombs into a line of police officers. The Pullman strike in 1894, where Grover Cleveland had to issue an injunction and call out federal troops to get the trains to run on time. The Homestead strike in 1893. The Pennsylvania National Guard literally has a battle with steel workers at Carnegie's steel plant in Homestead, Pennsylvania, just outside Pittsburgh. There is a palpable fear among the middle class that the poor and the people who are dispossessed will resort to violence, will resort to bloodshed, will resort to revolution unless there are fixes. And in other countries where they aren't fixing the problem, you do have revolutions. When does the Russian Revolution take place? 1917. That's the Communist Revolution. That's workers in Russia fed up. Well, there are workers in America who are fed up too. So progressives are saying, well, dear God, I mean, give them a pay raise. Give them a pay raise and 15 minutes extra break, and maybe that will prevent a revolution. And this belief in optimism, and I really can't emphasize enough this attitude about the future, that there isn't anything that can't be fixed. The turn of the century, this was they had world fairs all the time. You had the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition, where the telephone was revealed for the first time. You had the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago, celebrating 400 years since Columbus. The electric light bulb was on display in 1893, and other electronic devices. The motion picture camera. 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. Celebrating what? What would they be celebrating in 1904 in St. Louis? 1903 to 1904 in St. Louis. Now, the airplane had just been invented December 1903. First flight. Not the automobile. They're celebrating an anniversary. The 1876 was celebrating 100 years since the Declaration of Independence. 1893 was celebrating 400 years since Columbus. 1903-04 in St. Louis, Missouri. What are they celebrating? A 100 years since Lewis and Clark. 1803. It's the Louisiana Purchase. And you know what came out at the 1904 World's Fair? Hamburgers. Hot dogs. Ice cream cones. Canned food. It's the first time you're seeing it made on a massive scale. So there's, hey, that's business, man. That's business profits right there. So you've got a unifying set of characteristics for progressives. Now, these muckrakers, are they a force for good, or are they just troublemakers? Teddy Roosevelt says they're troublemakers. That all they're doing is stirring the pot so that they can make a buck, so that they can sell a book, so that they can, get a magazine contract. That's all a muckraker is interested in, is his own benefit. That's why Teddy Roosevelt calls them muckrakers. He's the guy who coins the term. And this is a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. In Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, you may recall the description of the man with the muckrake, the man who could look no way but downward. Just stop on that phrase. The man who could look no way but downward. What does he say? Yeah, it's all these Debbie Downers and Donnie Downers and glass half empty people. That's what a muckraker is. They're just trying to show you the problems. Roosevelt believed they were in it simply to sell stories and make money. But the muckrakers do have a variety of motives. And we're going to take a look at them right now. So we're going to take a look. We're going to identify the crux of the problem. We'll take a look at what is written. I'll give you an opportunity to talk with one another. And then I'll randomly call on somebody. So everybody be prepared. We're not going to go to the usual suspects either. Whoa, that's not what I want. Back. Here we go. All right. Can everybody read that?
Yeah.
Is that impossible to read?
I'll turn the light off.
I'll read it along with you so that folks at home can understand. This is Herbert Crowley writing in what is called the Promise of American Life. A considerable proportion of the American people is beginning to exhibit economic and political as well as personal discontent. A generation ago, the implication was that if a man remained poor and needy, his poverty was his own fault. Does it make you think of anything specific? Social Darwinism makes me think of Horatio Alger's stories. Because the American system was giving all of its citizens a fair chance. Now, however, the discontented poor are beginning to charge their poverty to an unjust political and economic organization, and reforming agitators do not hesitate to support them in this contention. Manifestly, a threatened obstacle has been raised against the anticipated realization of our national promise. Unless the great majority of Americans not only have, but believe they have, a fair chance, the better American future will be dangerously compromised.
Lord, you can write that back.
This is 100 years ago. You could write it today. It would be applicable. Go ahead and discuss with a friend what you think the crux of the problem is. What's the crux of the problem?
I guess this is like the whole prevent the revolution of the
Well, pretty much people are upset, but now they're putting it on political machine and not themselves. So the American people are blaming the government for the problem.
Glazer, what do you think the crux of the problem is?
That like they need to give
Who's they?
the government needs to keep the poor like maybe give them money so they don't start a riot. Not a riot.
Give them money so they don't start a riot. You see that there?
No, but like maybe
Well, then get to what you think it is, and don't make up stuff. Read the words that are there.
maybe the support the poor.
Are you proposing a solution or identifying the problem? I need to know what the problem is. In a nutshell, what is the problem? Schmitty.
The people in poverty, they don't have, again, they're not able to help the cause because they're worried about surviving.
Okay?
People don't have a fair chance like they used to at this time.
For lack of a better term. Yeah?
People don't have equal opportunity to move up, to move their status up, and they're blaming the government for it.
Where are you seeing blaming the government?
Charging their poverty to an unjust political and economic organization.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, going off what Allison said, there's no real vertical mobility. If you're in poverty, in the way workers are treated in this day and age, you're most likely going to just stay there because of all the monopolies and poor working conditions. It's like, hey.
Okay. So can we take everything that people have said and distill it into something simple and easy? What is the crux of the problem as Crowley sees it? Kramer. Civil unrest? Okay.
Americans don't believe they all have a fair chance.
Bingo. That's it. That's it. You got it. Americans don't believe they have a fair shot. That's the belief. Be it because they don't have economic opportunity or the government is corrupt or whatever. But there's a lack of faith. So how do you fix that? What I would like you to do is propose a solution. Go ahead, discuss it amongst yourselves.
Reform the government, and maybe other countries. So the duty is. Well, also, pretty much going off of your and tax to help other people.
Oh, yeah, but that is possible.
What the word for what?
It looks terrible anyway.
Opportunities. Well, who's to provide that?
Andrew Jackson.
We need Andrew Jackson. Somebody reanimate the corpse of Andrew Jackson. Opportunities. But then we got to get to who then provides those opportunities and what do those opportunities look like? We need to tax people? There are problems! Tax! 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 What are we at the Democratic Convention here? God almighty, there's a problem! Tax!
Oh no, it's raining. Let's tax people.
Tax and spend! Tax and spend! I know! This is life, folks. Guys, in life, you have to learn how to identify what the crux of a problem is. And as an engaged citizenry, you've got to be able to propose solutions. Now, if people, and guys, notice that the crux of the problem that we establish, a lack of faith, you don't see anything up there that says lack of faith. We came up with that. We distilled it. That's what that's saying. There is a distinct lack of faith among a lot of American people that the deck is stacked against them. So how do you then provide, if the crux of the problem is lack of faith, how do you then provide faith in the system?
You could introduce a system of welfare, so like money to the poor,
Oh, giving money does not solve anything. Teach a man to fish, and he'll fish for a lifetime. Give a man a fish, and he'll eat for a day. Giving money is not the solution. How do you restore faith?
Well, I was just going to go off of introducing more civil works projects, but if we're talking about instilling faith in the people, that's a different animal.
That it is. And you guys have got to address the problem. If the problem is lack of faith, how do you restore faith and confidence in people? Brian?
Get rid of monopolies and corruption.
Okay, regulate corruption. Get rid of monopolies. Sure. What will that do?
That will make the poor people think that the rich don't have an unfair chance.
There you go. That's fine. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Eliminate the political machines in the big cities. Like
Get rid of corrupt political machines. What will that do?
Show them that the government's trying to be truthful.
Honest. The word is honest.
Yeah.
A lack of faith requires honesty. Give people all the money in the world. It's not going to restore faith. Herbert Crowley is generally considered to be the godfather of progressivism. There are two people who I would argue, when I think progressive president, I think Teddy Roosevelt, even though Woodrow Wilson was a way more progressive president than Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is kind of the progressive president. There are two books that influenced Teddy Roosevelt's thinking. Influence of Sea Power Upon History, which guides his foreign policy, and The Promise of American Life, which guides his domestic policy. Roosevelt's main goal as president, as he saw it, was to restore faith to the American people by being an honest broker for them. That government needs to act on behalf of the American people in a good, honest way. All right. Thorstein Veblen. What a name. What a name. Theory of the leisure class. Thorstein Veblen is best known for coining the phrase conspicuous consumption. Buying overly gaudy things because you can. I mean, why does a person need a 10,000 square foot mansion? They don't. They buy it because they need it. Why do you buy a Cadillac Escalade when a Hyundai Sonata will get you to the store just as well? You buy it because you want to show off. That is conspicuous consumption. Look at me. I'm wealthy. Today we don't call it conspicuous consumption. We call it brag. Oh, bling. Let's read the document and get to the crux of the problem. The institution of a leisure class by force or class interest and instinct and by precept and prescriptive example makes for the perpetuation of the existing maladjustment of institutions and even favors a reversion to a somewhat more archaic scheme of life, a scheme which would still be further out of adjustment with the exigencies, the realities, of life under the existing situation, even than the accredited obsolescent scheme that has come down from the immediate past. Wow, is that guy verbose? And dare I say, quite loquacious. He speaks with big words. But sometimes you need to be able to get through the static. You need to be able to latch on to the things that you understand. Ignore the things you don't understand. look at the title, try to fix in on what you can understand here. What do you think the crux of the problem is as Veblen sees it? Now, I focus on a couple of phrases. I focus on maladjustment of institutions, archaic scheme of life, the obsolescent, out of date, obsolescent scheme that has come down from the immediate past. This is the theory of the leisure class. Leisure, I focus on leisure. What is the crux of the problem? Discuss.
The wealthy have a lot of money, and them spending it on all these random things shows how imbalanced society is. I think. The wealthy spending all of their money on random leisure things shows the imbalance of the class.
So how does that play into the archaic scheme of life?
I don't.
The words are archaic and obsolescent.
Yeah, so somehow
Archaic
this is
means
putting us-
archaic means it's old, doesn't work. Obsolete means it's old, doesn't work. So what's old and doesn't work? The what? Is Veblen saying that rich people are inherently lazy? Why would he say that? Why would he claim that rich people are inherently lazy? I mean, don't you have to be, energetic to make money? Drew, what do you think? Absolutely, so they are providing no real good for the overall society. That is the crux of the problem. Rich people are spending their money on wasteful things and providing no good to the overall benefit of society. That is the crux of the problem. So, offer me a solution. Go ahead. Come up with something. Rich are controlling all this wealth and they're doing no good with it.
Tax them.
Wait, what?
Tax them.
Tax them. There you go. That's an opportunity. Hey, maybe, and
Tax them.
just to put it in.
Tax them. Yeah.
Maybe a progressive income tax. Tax and spend. Tax and spend.
It's raining too much. You need to pay taxes.
All right. Let's take a look at the next document. This is easy. Jacob Reese, How the Other Half Lives. That's the document. What's the crux of the problem? Go ahead, Jordan. Poor living conditions for immigrants. People in cities, poor living conditions in cities. Truancy. Why are these kids not in school? I mean, you got like 10 people living in that one spot there on the wood piles for the stove. So, propose some solutions. This was real easy for John and Mary Q. Public to open up their newspaper, see these pictures, and go, holy hell, we need to do something. So, propose some solutions. What do we do? Put them in school! Mandatory education. What else? Yeah.
I forget what they're called, but the laws that limit how many people can live in an area.
Zoning laws, maximum occupancy laws. Sure. What else? Yeah. Building regulations. Absolutely. love these kids sitting here smoking.
They do that today.
Yeah.
Build public housing.
Oh, ooh, wow, now you're getting all Lyndon Johnson on me. Yeah, but sure, you can build public housing if you like. That's definitely a solution. I mean, and look, Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s is kind of the culmination of progressive ideas from the early 20th century. Anything else? All right, we're just spitballing here. Let's look at the next document. Ida Tarbell. Now, I got to give you a little bit on who Ida Tarbell is. Ida Tarbell, talk about an interesting story. This is never on an AP test, but brother, does it help you understand why this woman is doing what she's doing? Because she didn't just wake up one day and decide, you know what, I'm going to stick it to John D. Rockefeller. What do we know about John D. Rockefeller, if anything? Yeah.
Standard Oil.
Standard Oil, that's his company. Today it's ExxonMobil. But back in the day, Standard Oil. And how did John D. Rockefeller organize his monopoly?
Horizontal.
Horizontal integration, buying up other oil companies. That's it. One of the companies that John D. Rockefeller absorbed was Ida Tarbell's father's oil company. Drove him out of business. He went bankrupt. Ida Tarbell's father decided to go upstairs into the bathroom, take a shotgun, and deprive himself of the nasty oxygen habit he had, while Ida Tarbell was at the ripe old age of 10. So her father committed suicide because John D. Rockefeller drove him out of business and into bankruptcy. Ida Tarbell, at the age of 10, decided she was going to get John D. Rockefeller if it was the last thing she did. So, take a look at the document. It seemed to be an intellectual necessity for Rockefeller to be able to direct the course of any particular gallon of oil from the moment it gushed from the earth until it went into the lamp of a housewife. There must be nothing in his great machine he did not know to be working right. It was to complete this ideal, to satisfy this necessity, that he undertook late in the 70s, 1870s, to organize the oil markets of the world as he had already organized oil refining and transporting. Rockefeller's instinct for the money opportunity in things was amazing. His perception of the value of seizing this or that particular invention, plant, and market was unerring. What is the crux of the problem? Yeah. Monopoly. What is the problem with monopolies? Yeah. There's no competition. So again, what is the problem with having no competition? Yeah.
One person controls everything.
Again, what is the problem with that?
They
They
charge whatever they want.
can charge whatever they want. Exactly. Lack of competition means unfair charging and unfair rates. Yeah. So, propose a solution.
Obviously, regulate the price of oil.
The government state what the price of oil should be? My God, what if we live in a communist country? I mean, if you'd like to live in a communist utopia, by all means, comrade, go ahead. How about a little less than the government stating what the price should be? Is there anything the government can do? Yeah. Regulate monopolies, sure. Well, wait a minute. Don't we have a law in the books? Don't we have a law in the books? And this thing came about in 1890. Don't we have the Sherman Antitrust Act on the books? Anybody remember what the Sherman Antitrust Act was being used for? Even though it was supposed to break up illegal combinations that impeded trade?
labor unions.
Yeah, it was being used to break up labor unions. Absolutely. But maybe if you use the Sherman Antitrust Act for what it was meant for, to stop monopolies, it would create fairness and competition. Fairness and competition drives down prices. It's good for everybody. All right, next one. It should be, the next one should be this one. There you are. There's your document. What's the problem?
Child labor.
Child labor. They are dirty, so where are they working? Coal mines, absolutely. These pictures were taken out in West Virginia. These are 8, 9, 10-year-old kids working in coal mines. John Spargo worked alongside these kids, went in the mines with them, took pictures of them, wrote up an expose. He worked there for a week and came out and had breathing problems. So, what's the solution?
Child labor law.
Child labor laws! There you go. See, now we're getting it. Fantastic. Helen Hunt Jackson, Century of Dishonor. What's the crux of the problem? We should already know this. Yeah, and treatment of Native Americans was bad. Not good. So what's the solution?
Put them on reservation.
What's that? You can't just say sorry. And thank you, Brian, for, well, just put them on reservations. Actually, remember what the problem was? The Dawes Act took them off reservations and tried to make natives into farmers. And that didn't work. So maybe put them back on their land. Maybe. Maybe not so crazy. We'll have to see if Native Americans get anything from the progressives. Frank Norris, the octopus. Now, I provided a cartoon here. That is just freaky deaky, man. You'll have nightmares about that. And now look at what the document is, okay? It's an octopus. It says railroad monopoly. It's got its tentacle wrapped around the Capitol. It's got its tentacle wrapped around shipping. It's got its tentacle wrapped around workers and farmers and railroads and whatnot. What is the crux of the problem?
Railroad monopoly.
Railroad monopolies. But not just railroad monopolies. What is the problem with railroad monopolies?
They're out of control.
Strangling trade.
They're impeding trade, and what do you mean by they're out of control?
They're doing whatever they want without any opposition from anyone, like the government.
So they have undue influence over all aspects of life. And in particular, Frank Norris wrote about the Muscle Slough massacre of 1880, where farmers were being evicted from their land, and the railroad company sent guys in and killed them. That a company believed it could do that is a problem. So what? Yeah. No, the eyes of the octopus are the two guys who ran the Southern Pacific Railroad. What's the solution? Regulate the railroads. But wait a minute, I thought we already had something on the books. The Interstate Commerce Commission, right? Okay, if we've got the Interstate Commerce Commission on the books, and their job, and this was passed in 1887, the Interstate Commerce Act, if you've got a commission, and and their job is to regulate. What must they do to regulate? What do they have to do? Huh? Well, they got to come up with consequences, but don't they actually have to go out and look? I mean, you literally have to walk out of your office to investigate these problems. And if you don't have enough people working in the office, can the thing function effectively? Guys, the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to investigate food and drugs in this country. But if the Congress isn't going to fund the Food and Drug Administration to the level it needs funding, how often do you expect that meat to be inspected? You can put all the commissions and acts in place you want, but unless you fund them and staff them with people, they're not going to do anything. Right, they created the Interstate Commerce Commission, but they never funded it. And they never gave it authority. So yeah, here's the Interstate Commerce Commission. Yeah, that's a problem. But they didn't have the authority to do anything. Or the resources. I wonder if somebody comes along and helps with that. All right, quickly. Lincoln Stephens, shame of the cities. There is hardly an office from the United States Senator down to alderman, like a neighborhood worker, in any part of the country to which the businessman has not been elected, yet politics remains corrupt and government pretty bad. Lincoln Stephens doesn't mince words here. What is the crux of the problem? Corruption at the local level, municipal corruption. So, propose a solution for me. What do you think? How do you clean up local government? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. What do you think, Pat? So Washington's going to come into Harwood, Maryland, and fix things. Yeah, because the federal government knows what Harwood, Maryland needs. Wait, what?
Like requirements for who can be elected locally.
You can't just have some dude. Maybe qualifications.
Yeah.
Maybe expansion of qualifying tests. Didn't we talk about that at some point in time? Maybe get rid of elected officials altogether. Maybe come up. We'll talk about it later. But maybe get rid of the traditional way of governing cities. Come up with something else. Maybe you don't need to have a mayor.
Like a mayor of like Harwood.
Now, Harwood is an unincorporated municipality within Anne Arundel County. Anne Arundel County is the governing body. There's a county executive of Anne Arundel County. So they are the executive branch. They are the closest executive to you is the county executive. They're like the mayor of Anne Arundel County. The mayor is for a city what the governor is for a state, what the president is for the country. They are the executive. They are the one who makes sure that the government, that the laws get enacted and enforced. They execute the laws. Executive. That's like what? The Toronto mayor. Yes, he is the mayor of Toronto. He is charged with making sure the laws, like not smoking crack, get enforced. Now he's going to go down to the street level, literally, and make sure that, he knows everything there is to know about the situation before he enforces it.
Hey, if he's smoking all the crack, no one else can.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's
Getting
awesome.
that stuff off the street.
I'm providing a public service for you. All right, let's take a look. Oh my God, more writing. David G. Phillips, treason of the Senate. Nelson Aldrich, he's the focus of this. The Aldrich machine controls the legislature of Rhode Island. He's making reference to the state of Rhode Island. The Aldrich machine controls the Rhode Island legislature, the election boards, the court, the entire machinery of the Republican form of government. In 1904, when Aldrich needed a legislature to re-elect him for his 5th consecutive term, it is estimated that carrying the state of Rhode Island cost about $200,000, a small sum easy to get back by a few minutes of industrious pocket picking on Wall Street. And the leader, the boss of the Senate for the past 20 years has been Aldrich. Guys, how were senators elected? According to the Constitution, at the Constitutional Convention, the only direct voting that people made at the federal level was for their representative in the House.
Morning announcements will be one shortly.
How are senators elected?
But the state legislature.
The state legislatures elect the senators. And basically, what is the crux of the problem here?
He controls the state legislature.
What did Aldrich do?
He bought his way.
He bribed his way into the Senate. He bribed legislators to get him elected to the Senate. So, propose a solution.
Term limits.
Make that illegal. Okay, bribes are illegal, yes.
Term limits for senators.
Term limits, okay, but you still have state legislators choosing the senators. Make it what?
Make the election of the senator and direct election of people.
Make the people directly elect the senator?
Morning,
What a great
Southern.
idea.
Today is February 26th, a V-Day. Please stand for your Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Guys, the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1911, allows for the direct election of senators by the people.
Or you are taking Algebra 2 right now, you should consider taking the SAT or ACT.
I'm still working through this. These are easy.
Take it while you know the content.
ArtQuest 2014 T-shirts are now on sale.
Triangle
in
Shirtwaist
new black
Fire, Lady
tie-dye,
Garment workers,
tiger tie-dye
146 of them killed
See
in
any
a
art
factory
teacher
fire
place
in
your
New York
orders
City.
Now
They had to
through
jump
March
from the
24th.
9th floor
There will be
because
one
of certain
more National
problems.
Art
Yes.
Society meeting
Workplace
this Thursday in Bulldog
regulation.
Block.
Workplace
And after school
regulation,
with Mr.
workplace safety, is that the
See you
proposed
there.
solution?
Visit
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
Facebook.com/ArtRequest
things that you could do
or
here
follow the art department
to
on
prevent
Instagram.
this?
Workers' rights.
At
Didn't they lock the
ArtQuest
doors
Southern
and that's
They
why no
did
one
lock
could
the
get out?
doors from the outside to prevent the workers from getting out.
Yes.
In
that's
celebration
cool.
of Black History Month, the Social Studies
Hi?
Department presents Black History in America.
It is, I know. What else can you
Today,
do?
jazz and African American
Hi?
music schools formed
Zoning
around
laws,
the
maybe, yeah.
Ragtime and marching bands originated in Louisiana during the turn of the 19th century. The word jazz is a slang term that is
They have to inspect buildings.
Fire marshal.
You have to have a fire marshal inspect the building and make sure it is up to code. But you gotta have those codes in place first before you can make sure it's up to code. And maybe,
For those students interested
sprinkler
in the
system
Jumpstart program for next year,
That
or
could help.
current seniors
Fire
who
sneak.
want to attend AACC in the fall, a representative
Guys.
from AACC will be coming to Southern on March 6th.
that's a lot of words.
To 10 a.m.
That is a lot of
Provide
words.
students with
This is
pre-registration
Upton
information.
Sinclair's
Please sign
The
up
Jungle.
down in the guidance office.
People wanted to know.
Plungers, you must pick up all permission forms from Mrs. West's room election night is today, February 26th.
That's right.
Remember, this
That's
is a
why we can't
mandatory
do
event.
trial.
You are required to be in the main lobby no later than 4:10 p.m.
Yep. All right.
Dance company auditions will take place on Thursday, February 27th from 3:30 to 6:30
This
p.m.
is exciting, isn't
in the
it?
dance room. See Miss Norwood if you have any questions.
Astucia Southern High School staff and students, the youth of St. James Parish are collecting prom-style dresses, shoes, and accessories for the second annual Project Prom Dress giveaway. Please drop off all dresses, shoes, and accessories in Ms. Hagerman's room. If you have any questions, please see Karen Fur, Catherine Milbrand, or Carolyn Pickard. The art department wants everyone to congratulate Miss Libby Kozlowski on being accepted into the Artworks at 7th Gallery in North Beach. She will become a permanent professional artist, doing regular showings at the gallery. She was juried in last night based on her outstanding portfolio of 3D work. Special thanks to Mr. Bill Thayer for this opportunity. Mr. Thayer is also a professional photographer at the gallery.
Don't be green with envy. You too can be a member of the Environmental Club. Stop by Miss Laura's room at F102 Wednesday during Bulldog Block to help make Southern more green.
Friday is the deadline. Friday is the deadline for AP registrations. Friday is the deadline for all AP registrations, even if you are not taking the exam. Friday is the deadline for all AP registrations. If you are not taking the exam, or you won't be taking
Okay, I'm getting.
Got it.
There would be.
51 students from the Centers of Applied Technology North and South finished in the top 3 in their categories at the recent Skills USA Region 3 Championships.
There would be meat stored in great piles in rooms, and the water from leaky roofs would drip over it. Thousands of rats would race upon it. It was too dark in these storage places to see well, but a man could run his hand over piles of meat and sweep off handfuls of dried dung of rats. These rats were nuisances. These rats were nuisances, and the packers would put out poison bread for them. They would die, and then the rats, the bread, and the meat would go into the hoppers together. This is no fairy story and no joke. The meat would be shoveled into carts, and the man who did the shoveling would not trouble to lift out a rat even if he saw one. There were things that went into the sausage in comparison with which a poisoned rat was a tidbit. There was no place for men to wash their hands before they ate their dinner, and so they made a practice of washing them in water that was to be ladled into the sausage. There were the butt ends of smoked meat, scraps of corned beef, and all the odds and ends of waste of the plant that would be dumped into old barrels in the cellar and left there. Under the system of rigid economy which the packers enforced, there were some jobs that it only paid to do once in a long time, and among these was cleaning out the waste barrels. Every spring they did it, and in the barrels would be dirt, rust, old nails, stale water, and cartload after cartload of it would be taken up and dumped into the hoppers with the fresh meat and sent out to the public's breakfast. Some of it they would make into smoked sausage, but as smoking took time, it was therefore expensive, they would call upon their chemistry department to preserve it with borax and color it with gelatin to make it brown. All of their sausage came out of the same bowl, but when they came to wrap it, they would stamp some of it special, and for this, they would charge 2 cents more a pound. What is the crux of the problem?
Food is prepared bad.
Food is disgusting!
Bad.
Bad food.
Back then.
Back then, oh yeah, like Hot Pockets. Today. You guys haven't seen the Hot Pocket recall? Take a look at that. Look up Hot Pocket recall. That just happened this week.
Yeah.
So what's the solution? The FDA. The FDA! Food and Drug Administration, regulation of food safety, regulation of drugs. All right, and we got 2 other ones here I want to get done with. Guys, this is easy. What's the problem?
Lynching.
Lynching. What is the solution?
Make lynching illegal.
Make lynching illegal. I know, that's the thing I focused on that freaks me out. Look at the little kids here dressed in their Sunday best. Smiling.
Did they like do that to him?
Yes, they did that to him.
He's black.
Because he was black. Ray Stannard Baker and Ida Wells were trying to expose the problems of lynching in the South. and racism in general. Ida Wells herself was trying to lobby Congress for an anti-lynching law.
Wait, isn't that like murder? Is murder illegal already?
But this is the South. You can't have the feds coming in and telling the South what to do. We know how to take care of our own things.
We can murder people?
They've got their place, we've got our place. And then, finally, W.E.B. Du Bois, who we've looked at before. This is the Niagara Movement Declaration of Principles, 1905, that basically what it's saying here is that I'm using that anachronistic term here, the Negro needs to be given the right to vote or enforce the right to vote, needs to enforce their civil liberties, needs to provide economic opportunity, and needs to provide education. That those things must be progress, suffrage, civil liberty, economic opportunity, education. Those are the cornerstones. What is the crux of the problem?
They're not being enforced.
At least they're not being enforced. So what is the solution? Enforce them. There you go. All right, folks. I'm going to give people credit in the grade book for doing what we just did here, and you may be on your way.